Welcome, history enthusiasts and lifelong learners. If you're someone who still believes that true strength lies in grit, discipline, and the will to endure, then this journey through the heart of the Roman Empire is tailor-made for you. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the greatest military secrets of all time. It's not a weapon, not a battlefield maneuver, and not even a famous general. No, the true power of Rome marched on 2 feet, every single day, across deserts, mountains, and enemy lands. What you're about to discover will reshape everything you thought you knew about ancient warfare and human endurance. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and prepare to be amazed by the untold story of how marching, not fighting, built an empire that shaped the modern world. If this kind of deep dive into forgotten military brilliance intrigues you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss another episode. Let's begin our march back in time. When we think of physical endurance, we often picture marathon runners, mountain climbers, or modern-day soldiers carrying their gear into combat zones. But what if I told you that none of them, impressive as they are, could match the daily grind of a Roman legionary? While today's infantry may carry about 35 pounds for a few hours, Roman soldiers routinely hauled over 60 pounds of equipment while marching 20 miles a day after day, for decades. And they didn't have boots with cushioned soles, hydration packs, or a support truck waiting at the end of the road. This wasn't just about building physical stamina. It was about forging unbreakable willpower. The Roman military march wasn't a detail lost in the pages of history. It was the very foundation of one of the most powerful empires the world has ever known. Long before swords clashed and shields locked in battle, the Roman soldier had already done the impossible. He had walked the path to victory. Historians often focus on Rome's battlefield tactics, their legendary generals, and the architecture of their cities. But the real story, the one that explains how a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber became the ruler of the known world, starts with something much simpler and far more grueling: the march. From the frozen highlands of Britannia to the scorching sands of Syria, the legions of Rome didn't just move, they advanced like a machine. Their footsteps left behind more than just trails in the dirt. They carved out roads, established routes of conquest, and projected power in ways that no army before them ever had. In the ancient world, armies came and went. But Rome's endurance, engineered through unrelenting daily marches, set them apart. The battlefield was never where Rome's greatness began. It began each morning with the first step. Picture this: a 17-year-old Roman recruit wakes up before sunrise. There's no warm-up jog, no stretch routine, and no breakfast buffet waiting for him. Instead, he's ordered to strap on over 60 pounds of gear, roughly the weight of an 8-year-old child, and start marching. Not for a few hours, not for a day, but day after day, covering nearly 20 miles daily under the beating sun, across unforgiving terrain, or through chilling mountain air. And this wasn't boot camp. This was the routine. Roman military training wasn't designed to push limits. It was designed to erase them. According to ancient military records, such as Epitome Rei Militaris, these marches were enforced regardless of weather, elevation, or the condition of the soldier. There were no exceptions, no sick days. Every man was expected to match the pace or be left behind. But just how far did they go? Archaeological discoveries from Roman forts, like Vindolanda, along Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain, show that an average legionary would march more than 4,000 miles per year. Multiply that by the standard 25-year service commitment, and you get close to 100,000 miles, the equivalent of walking around the Earth almost 4 times. Can you imagine the toll that takes on the human body? The blisters, the muscle strain, the grinding fatigue. And yet, they kept going. Why? Because in the Roman military, marching wasn't just movement. It was a mindset. These marches weren't designed to test men. They were designed to transform them from farmers and laborers into unstoppable engines of conquest. While other armies lumbered forward with supply wagons and slow-moving footmen, the Roman legions moved like a tide, unrelenting, efficient, and always on time. This ability to cover massive distances with brutal speed and precision became one of Rome's most lethal weapons. They didn't just arrive at the battlefield, they arrived early. In the ancient world, most armies moved like sluggish caravans, slow, heavy, and predictable. But the Roman legions, they were a different breed entirely. Their march wasn't just a means of transportation. It was a weapon, sharpened not with steel, but with rhythm, discipline, and ruthless efficiency. Imagine you're a tribal leader somewhere in Gaul, preparing defenses for an expected Roman attack. You think you've got time, maybe weeks. But then, one morning, you hear a distant rumble. Not thunder. Something more chilling, the synchronized clash of 6,000 iron-studded sandals striking the ground in perfect unison. And just like that, the enemy is here, days ahead of schedule, formed in ranks, unshaken, and ready to strike. This was Rome's genius. Their unmatched ability to move entire armies swiftly and in formation gave them the element of surprise, psychological dominance, and logistical control. Roman commanders didn't rely solely on brute strength. They mastered timing, using the march itself as a form of pressure, appearing on the battlefield when the enemy least expected it and before defenses were ready. Cassius Dio, a Roman historian, put it plainly. The Romans conquered not only with their weapons, but with their legs. Speed and mobility were as critical as swords and spears. While Persian or Greek forces might take 3 to 4 days to cover 60 miles, Roman legions could do it in 2, all while carrying their own food, weapons, tools, and construction gear. They didn't need supply trains. They didn't wait for reinforcements. They arrived, fully armed and self-sufficient. Even before the first arrow flew, the psychological battle was often already won. Towns surrendered, forts were abandoned, and enemies fled not because of what the Romans did, but because of how they arrived. To the ancient world, the thunderous approach of the Roman march didn't signal the beginning of a war. It marked the beginning of the end. To understand the true strength of the Roman army, you have to look beyond the battlefield to the backpack. Every Roman legionary carried his world on his shoulders, while a modern young soldier might haul 45 pounds of gear. Roman foot soldiers regularly bore 60 to 70 pounds, sometimes more during extended campaigns. This load earned them a legendary nickname, Marius Mules. It wasn't an insult, it was a badge of honor. The name came from General Gaius Marius, who in the 1st century BCE radically reformed the Roman army. Before his time, armies relied heavily on long, lumbering baggage trains. But Marius had a revolutionary idea: make every soldier a self-contained unit, fully responsible for his own food, tools, and shelter. The result, a military force that was lighter, faster, and nearly impossible to outmaneuver. So what exactly did these soldiers carry? Armor larica segmentata, or chainmail, 12 to 20 pounds. Shield scutum, about 22 pounds. Weapons gladius and pilum, 7 to 9 pounds. Entrenching tool shovel, or pick, roughly 4 pounds. Backpack sarsana packed with rations for 3 days, a cooking pot, water flask, cloak, utensils, and personal items, another 15 to 20 pounds. 3 wooden stakes used for fortification, 6 to 9 pounds total. These weren't arbitrary items. Each piece was carefully designed for durability and function. The gear was arranged for balanced weight distribution, a concept we now call ergonomic design. But the Romans were doing it 2,000 years ago. Unlike other armies that needed wagons and support crews to survive, Roman legions could move independently for days, constructing their own camps, digging fortifications, and cooking their own meals. Every man was a soldier, an engineer, and a survivor. This was more than physical burden. It was psychological preparation. Carrying one's own survival turned discipline into instinct, and instinct into dominance. In short, Rome didn't win wars by being heavier. It won by being smarter, one mule at a time. Endurance isn't just about muscle. It's about the mind. Marching 20 miles a day under the weight of a small child strapped to your back is a physical feat, but doing it for weeks on end, through heat, mud, and exhaustion, without breaking mentally. That's where the Roman legions truly shined. The secret wasn't brute strength. It was mental conditioning, woven into the very rhythm of their march. One of the most powerful tools in this arsenal was the Carmen Militare, a series of rhythmic marching chants that weren't just meant to pass the time. These were synchronized breathing tools, designed with precise patterns of syllables to regulate pace, focus attention, and reduce mental fatigue. Modern neuroscience now calls this a flow state, where the mind and body align to push past ordinary limits. Ancient inscriptions from sites like Pompeii and Vindolanda show that each legion had its own library of over 30 chants each, with a specific psychological purpose: to fight boredom, reduce fear, build camaraderie, or prepare for battle. Studies of these chant structures suggest they helped soldiers march up to 35% longer without mental strain compared to silent marches. But the chanting was just one part of a deeper system. Roman soldiers marched in groups of 8, called contubernium. They shared a tent, shared chores, and shared responsibility. This wasn't by accident, it was deliberate psychological design. Bonds forged through hardship created units that fought not just with strategy, but with loyalty stronger than blood. Even more remarkably, centurions trained their men to use mental landmarks, breaking long marches into mentally manageable segments. They called it memoria, via the memory of the road, a technique similar to what modern ultramarathoners and Navy SEALs use to push through pain by dividing effort into chunks. In times of extreme fatigue, soldiers even entered what the Romans described as somnium vigilans, a state of mindful awareness, where the body moved automatically while the mind partially rested. What today we'd recognize as a form of walking meditation. Rome's greatest victories weren't only won by sword or shield. They were won in the minds of men who refused to break, no matter how far the road. For most armies in history, reaching camp meant rest. For the Roman legions, it meant building a city before sunset. After marching 20 miles with over 60 pounds on their backs, Roman soldiers didn't collapse into bedrolls. Instead, they picked up shovels, axes, and stakes and began one of the most extraordinary engineering rituals in military history, constructing the castra, a fortified, self-sufficient military camp that rose from empty ground like a city overnight. According to first-hand observers like Polybius and Josephus, the transformation was astonishing. What began as a barren field quickly became an organized stronghold with walls, watchtowers, roads, latrines, a central plaza, and even a command center, all laid out with geometric precision. The secret standardization and modular design. Roman military engineers followed a fixed layout, no matter the terrain or region. The camp was typically rectangular, with rounded corners to eliminate blind spots, and was divided into predictable zones. The Via Praetoria, a main road leading to the commander's quarters. The Via Principalis, a crossroad connecting barracks and supply areas. Latrines and cooking areas placed with hygienic foresight. Defensive trenches and walls built with timber stakes each soldier carried. Every man knew his role, his position, and the sequence of actions. There was no confusion, no wasted time. This wasn't just about security, it was psychological warfare. To enemies watching from afar. The sight of a Roman army building a fortress after a full day's march sent a chilling message. If they can do this today, what will they do tomorrow? To the legionaries themselves, the camp was more than protection. It was a piece of Rome, a familiar sanctuary in hostile lands. As Tacitus observed, within the camp, they were never far from home. Few armies in history could match the Roman legions in battle. But none could match their ability to build a fortress from nothing before nightfall. When the sun dipped below the horizon and darkness cloaked the Roman camp, you might think the soldiers finally rested. But inside the castra, the machine of Rome kept humming quietly, precisely, and with astonishing discipline. Unlike other armies that collapsed into chaos after a long day's march, the Roman legions followed a carefully orchestrated night routine. This was not downtime. It was operational recovery, centuries ahead of its time. At night, silent sentries patrolled the perimeter in calculated patterns. Passwords were exchanged through a strict three-part code: a word, a number, and a hand gesture. Guards who failed to respond correctly weren't given second chances. According to ancient sources like Polybius, dereliction of night duty could result in execution by fellow soldiers, a punishment not of cruelty, but of shared responsibility. But what truly set the Romans apart was their understanding that recovery was as strategic as combat. Within the camp, specialized teams rotated through critical tasks. Medics treated wounds and fatigue-related injuries. Blacksmiths and armorers repaired damaged gear. Frumentari logistics specialists prepared next-day rations. Water scouts. Aquilases located and purified drinking sources using vinegar solutions, an ancient form of sterilization. All this happened under a protocol known as silentium nocturnum, a strict rule of nighttime quiet to maximize sleep while critical operations continued. Even sleep was scientifically regulated. Legionaries slept in staggered 6-hour shifts, ensuring that at least 2/3 of the force was always battle-ready. And they didn't sleep alone. They shared evening meals in groups of 8, the contubernium, reinforcing bonds of trust. As the Roman military writer Vegetius once noted, men who break bread together are less likely to break ranks. The meal itself was no accident either. Archaeological analysis of cooking pots shows a diet rich in whole grains, legumes, lean proteins, and healthy fats, exactly the blend modern nutritionists recommend for muscle recovery and sustained energy. While the world outside slept, Rome prepared. By dawn, the camp could be torn down in under an hour, and the legions would once again march forward recharged, disciplined, and unstoppable. The story of the Roman legions isn't just about war, it's about endurance, discipline, and the power of routine. These men didn't become legends through glory on the battlefield alone. They became great through the quiet, relentless commitment to show up every day fully prepared, mentally focused, and willing to carry the weight of their world on their backs. That's the real lesson. Whether you're building a business, recovering from loss, caring for loved ones, or simply pushing through another day of life success, doesn't come in giant leaps. It comes in steady, purposeful steps. Like the Romans, you don't need to be the strongest or the fastest. You just need to keep marching with integrity, resilience, and a belief in something bigger than yourself. If that message speaks to you, if you believe that discipline, unity, and inner strength still matter, then this channel is for you. Hit the like button, subscribe, and join us as we explore more timeless lessons from the warriors of the past that still shape how we live today.